Trash of the various sort was one of the first phrases used to describe Mark Twain's novel The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn in 1885. The same book that English teachers boast in high school was first considered trash and then banned. Over 11,000 books have been challenged only since 1982, according to American Library magazine. Some of the most important books in literature were previously banned, and in fact, I'm willing to bet that you've read at least one of them. I've always been an avid reader and interested in banned books, so to prepare for this speech, I just spent weeks researching the history of censorship in America and books, and I'm also working towards my Master's of Education in Secondary English, and I'd like to think I know more about literature than the average person does. And the censorship of books in America has really been an issue since before the 19th century, and the banning of books continues to shape and redefine American history in past, present, and future. So banned books in America date all the way back to the 1600s, and in fact the first known book banned in this country was Thomas Morton's English New Canaan, and it was published in 1637. He wrote it about Native Americans in a very favorable light, and it mocked the Puritans, and it became a satire, and he famously said, "Puritans make a great show of religion, but no humanity." So consequently, he is what America considers their first political exile. And an early example of a famous book that was banned is Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. And so the first week it released, it sold 10,000 copies, and then the first year there was 300,000 copies sold. So according to the University of Alabama Publishers Bindings, it was the most sold book of the 19th century next to the Bible. And the book was banned mostly in the South because of the anti-slavery themes. Many white Southerners claimed that the book was false and slavery was unfairly depicted in her book. Both books banned before the 20th century were based on each era's respective issues, political agendas. And so next, when it comes to legal matters, many court cases helped to shape the climate of censorship in America. Up until the 19th century, books were not really federally regulated or mandated by the U.S. government, and according to U.S. Legal Systems website, in 1837, the Comstock Act was created to ban literature, and any literature that was deemed sexually arousing, and it could even be indirectly, and the act was named after Anthony Comstock, who was the leader of the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice, and he was also a special agent in the New York State Prosecutor's Office. The act banned mailing and transportation of any printed materials that contained sexual material, as well as any sort of contraceptive drug or device or any mention of either. So if someone violated this act, there were harsh fines, and they could even receive jail time. Starting in the 1950s, there was a series of court cases that began to shape censorship laws, and one of these major cases came about in 1957. It was called Roth versus United States. It was about Samuel Roth, who owned a book business in New York, and he was convicted of sending books that were in violation of the federal obscenity statute. And this case had major effects after the Supreme Court ruled that obscenity did not fall within the definition of the First Amendment and was, quote, utterly without redeeming social relevance. So this was really the first time the court had tried to define obscenity, and because of it, Roth did spend time in prison. So a different yet equally important case arose in 1982 called Board of Education, Island Trees Union Free School District number 26 versus PICO. And after attending a conservative conference, teachers in upstate New York decided to ban 9 books in their high school library, including Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. And it was really on the basis that they were just inappropriate for minors. So in response, parents and students challenged the teachers in the Board of Education versus PICO, which ultimately ruled that teachers or the board could not ban books because they disagree with the content. According to American Libraries magazine, the court ruling was really close at 5-4. Essentially, there were many pertinent court cases in recent history when it comes to book censorship in the U.S. But next, we're going to move on to book censorship in the 21st century. So just because it's the 21st century doesn't mean that the attempt to ban books has stopped. For instance, one of the most popular books that people try to ban is the Harry Potter series. So according to American Library Association, in 2005, a lady by the name of Laura Mallory from Georgia spent 2 years trying to ban the Harry Potter books. And this was all because she thought they were satanic. She was unsuccessful, but this was just really one of over 3,000 challenges that the book has faced since it's come out. And the set of books is actually one of the most challenged set of books in this century. The largest reason people tend to contest books are for sexual content and offensive language, especially geared towards minors. Now each year, readers across the country will celebrate what's called Banned Book Week, and people participate in public readings, virtual events using the hashtag RebelReader, Banned Book Week, and other supportive events. And according to the New York Times, in 2016, the top reasons for contested books were from parents, actually, and it was over modern-day issues such as LGBTQ rights, immigration, gender, race, and so on. And in 2015, a book by author Alex Gino titled George was banned in some schools because one of the characters was transgender and he was deemed unsuitable for elementary age children. Additionally, popular young adult author John Green had his book Looking for Alaska banned. It was really challenged by a lot of parents in Kentucky because of the sexually explicit scenes that may lead students to experiment sexually. And there's also a popular Netflix series called 13 Reasons Why, and it's based off of a book, actually, that happens to be the top of the list for 2017's most banned books because it deals so explicitly with teenage suicide. And these are just some of the modern and popular examples of challenged books. And there are thousands of books challenged every day, every year, for different reasons. So finally, it's important to remember that censorship of books in America has been an issue since before the 19th century, and the banning of books continues to shape and redefine American history in the past, present, and in the future. And with Thomas Morton and English New Canaan, we really learned that America has been censoring books with severe consequences since the 1600s. And while the Puritans were the issue then, it's really a new issue in each era. And there's just a plethora of books that people try to challenge over these different issues. So different court cases have shaped the way we interpret the First Amendment and how it relates to book censorship, including Roth versus United States and Board of Education versus PICO. And finally, we realize that books are still challenged today in the 21st century, and as the country quarrels over freedom and censorship. And within the coming years, there will be far more books banned than there'll be far more books challenged than the 11,000 since 1982. And each one will represent a different issue and argument.